If you've been even slightly active in the credit card world over the past few years, then there's a very high chance you've heard about the Chase Trifecta. At one point, it wasn't just popular, it felt like it was everywhere. Every YouTuber was talking about it, every blog was recommending it, and honestly, it almost felt like if you didn't have it, you were doing something wrong. But fast forward to today, and things don't look the same anymore, because slowly, very quietly, the perception around the Chase Trifecta has started to change, and not in a good way. Now people are questioning it, criticizing it, and in many cases, completely walking away from it. And that's exactly what we're going to talk about today. Because in this video, I'm going to give you my honest, real-world perspective as someone who has personally used the Chase Trifecta for over 6 years. Why it used to be so powerful, why it feels like it's losing its value, and step away from it in my own strategy. But before we jump into the negatives, we need to be fair. Because the Chase Trifecta didn't become famous for no reason. There were, and in some ways still are, some very strong advantages. Let's start with one of the biggest reasons people were drawn to it in the first place, and that's the low cost. The Chase Trifecta is typically made up of 3 cards: the Freedom Unlimited, the Freedom Flex, and then either the Sapphire Preferred or the Sapphire Reserve. Now here's what makes this setup so attractive. 2 of those cards have no annual fee at all. And if you go with the Sapphire Preferred instead of the Reserve, your total yearly cost is only about $95. That's it for a complete 3-card system. And when you factor in the $50 hotel credit that comes with the Sapphire Preferred, your effective cost drops even lower, which makes this setup extremely appealing, especially for beginners or anyone who doesn't want to deal with high annual fees. But that's just the beginning, because the real excitement starts with the welcome bonuses. This is where a lot of people get hooked, because in your first year, you can earn a massive amount of points just from signing up and meeting the spending requirements. And those points, they're not just numbers on a screen. At a base level, they're worth about 1 cent each, but if you use them strategically, you can easily double that value, or sometimes even more. Let's say you earn around 100,000 to 115,000 points. At minimum, that's over $1,000 in value. But if you redeem them the smart way, you could be looking at $2,000 or even higher. And this is where things get really interesting, because the real magic of the Chase Trifecta comes from its transfer partners. This is what separates it from simple cashback setups. Instead of just redeeming your points for basic value, you can transfer them to airline and hotel programs like British Airways, Flying Blue, Virgin Atlantic. But above all, there's one name that has carried the Chase ecosystem for years, and that is World of Hyatt. Hyatt has been one of the most valuable and consistent transfer partners available. People have used it to book luxury hotels, save thousands of dollars, and experience trips that would otherwise be out of reach. And I'm not just saying that in theory. I've personally used these points to stay at incredible properties, places that would normally cost a fortune. So yes, this part of the Chase Trifecta has been incredibly powerful. But now that advantage is starting to feel uncertain, because with the upcoming changes to Hyatt's award system, there's a real possibility that the value we've relied on for so long might not be the same anymore. And if that happens, that's not just a small issue, that's a major hit to the entire setup. Now let's talk about something that a lot of people overlook, but is actually one of the smartest ways to maximize this system, and that's the 2-player strategy. If you're using credit cards with a partner, this setup becomes significantly more powerful. One person signs up first, earns the bonuses, then refers the second person, and now both of you are earning rewards. On top of that, Chase allows you to combine your points if you live in the same household, which means faster accumulation, bigger redemptions, and overall better value. It's simple, but extremely effective. Now, if you go for the premium version with the Sapphire Reserve, you also unlock airport lounge access. And not just basic access, we're talking about high-quality lounges, plus the ability to bring guests for free, which is something many competitors have started removing. Now, personally, I don't think lounge access is essential. It's nice, it's comfortable, but it's not a deal breaker. Still, it's a bonus worth mentioning. But now, we need to shift gears because this is where the real problems begin. And honestly, this is the part that made me rethink everything. Let's start with the spending multipliers. This is one of the biggest weaknesses right now because when you compare Chase to its competitors, it's just not keeping up. There's no strong, consistent grocery category, which is one of the most common expenses for most people. And the so-called catch-all rate, it's only 1.5x. That might have been acceptable a few years ago, but today it's below average. Other cards are offering 2x or even more. So every time you're using a 1.5x card, you're essentially leaving value on the table. And over time, that adds up in a big way. But if that wasn't enough, the next issue is even bigger, and that's the new welcome bonus rules. Previously, you could earn a Sapphire bonus every 48 months. There was a clear strategy, a clear timeline, something to look forward to. Now, that's gone, and it's been replaced with what is basically a once-in-a-lifetime rule per card, which completely changes the game, because now there's no long-term incentive to stay in the system. And for people who are serious about maximizing rewards, that's a huge downside. And then we have the recent changes: higher annual fees, reduced redemption value, more complicated benefit structures, and overall less simplicity. It feels like Chase is moving towards a system that's harder to use and less rewarding over time. So when you put everything together, the picture becomes clear. The Chase Trifecta still works. It's still decent, especially for beginners, and especially in the short term. But long term, it's not as strong as it used to be. And that's exactly why, after years of using it, I've decided to step away. Because at the end of the day, the credit card game is always evolving. And if you want to stay ahead, you have to evolve with it. And that brings us to the bigger question: not just whether the Chase Trifecta is good or bad, but whether it still makes sense for you. If you found this breakdown helpful and you want more real, honest insights about credit cards, points, and smart financial strategies, make sure you subscribe to Smart Card Europe. This channel is all about helping you stay ahead of the game, maximize your rewards, and make smarter financial decisions. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next one.